Welcome to this session. Here we are now moving ahead in the next part of this poem. I'm reading for you. And would it have been worth it after all? After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talks of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all. I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say that is not what I meant at all, that is not it at all. So here again, Prufrook is assuming uh, about some future incident. He actually assuming that would it have been worth for the speaker while drinking tea to try to make a connection with one of the women, with one of the person to whom the speaker or the hero Prufrook who wants to convey his message or who wants to make a worthful communication with the lady. So he says that during one of his meetings in any hotel or restaurant, after having tea or cups porcelain, or after having a little talk between the speaker and his girlfriend or his dear friend, so he thinks, would it have been worthwhile, that would it have been worth it to arise from his lifeless life, and would it worth to dare in any conversation with a woman only to have her criticize him or reject him. So he is actually making a kind of request that he wants to make a proposal in front of the lady to whom he wants to tell about his inner feelings or experience, that would it worthwhile to uh, open a or start a discussion with a smile, or like here when he also says to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question. So here again we find that the speaker he is overwhelmed by an extreme obsession with an overwhelming question, uh, the answer of which he wants to get, but he is not able to get it. When he says, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, so come back to tell you, I shall tell you all. So here the speaker says that, like Lazarus, he actually tried to make a comparison of his own situation with that of Lazarus, that if he assumes that he is Lazarus who comes from his grave and to tell something forbidden, to tell some kind of truth, would it worthwhile that I shall also tell you the whole truth or the whole fact which he wants to convey? If it is possible, if it may possible that his beloved is standing by him and settling a pillow nearby him, and after having a conversation, he may get the response from the other side when the other person says that that is not what I mean at all, that is not it all. So here, to simplify this whole thing, all encompassing problem uh, into a manageable like a ball, and then have rolled it towards some question like a ball. He wants to roll his inner query or his overwhelming question like a ball. He wants to uh, make it rolled and just throw it to the other person. So when he says that I am Lazarus come from the dead, come back to tell you everything, I tell you everything. So if someone flapping off her pillow, and when she say that that is not what I meant at all. So after everything happened, after having all kind of up and downs in his life, after having seen all kind of experiences in his life, Prufrook uh, keeps on meditating certain facts or certain things in his life, that would it have been worth it after the teacups, after the skirts grazed the floor, and so much more, that still I can't say what I want to. It means after having so many things, after experiencing, after uh, analyzing so many things, he still is lacking in some kind of conveying a kind of meaningful message to the other person to whom he wants to convey. So that when he says that if it possible, after having after getting a lovable company of a woman from the side of his uh, girlfriend, when he ultimately he has to get the response that that is not at all what it mean at all. So that is something makes him again at all disappointed, that what he wants to get the positive response is still unable to get that. And now moving ahead, would and would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile? So here you can see that here the repetition of certain lines again and again, there is repetition. And after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets, after the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more, it is impossible to say just what I mean. But as if a magic lantern threw the nerves in patterns on a screen, would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all, that is not what I mean at all. So again here the same things are happening. He is assuming, would it have been worthwhile if it, considering all the times he would be with the woman at sunset or with her in a dooryard, would it have been worth it after all the mornings or evenings when workmen sprinkled the streets, after all the novels he would discuss with her over tea, after all the times he heard the tread of her skirt along the floor, after so many other occasions? Would it have been worth it if, after plumping a pillow or throwing off her shawl, she turned casually toward a window and then told him that he was mistaken about her intentions toward him? So here the speaker is expressing or tries to articulate his inner dilemma to the readers when he says that after having so many things, when suddenly he gets this kind of reply from a woman that she is not uh, interested in him, or she doesn't have the same the kind of intention uh, he wants to get back from her side. So when he gets to know that he was mistaken, so all his hopes, all his uh, the, uh, optimism, in a way we can say, gets shattering, or gets shattering into pieces. So that is also shows the very much disappointment, or disappointed attitude, or of the attitude of the speaker here, that how severely he gets disappointed after having this kind of experience in his life. And then moving ahead, no, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was mean to be. I am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, start a scene or two, advise the prince, no doubt an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic questions and meticulous, full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. Here, the speaker, the poet, is making a comparison between Prufrook and the Prince Hamlet, that who is the protagonist of Shakespeare's tragedy Hamlet, who is the Prince of Denmark. So here we can discern that Prufrook and Hamlet are both similar to in regard with their indecisiveness, that they both are indecisive. They at the end, till the end, they cannot decide properly what should they do. So the same situation is here of Prufrook. I am an attendant lord, but Prufrook here actually lacks the majesty and the charisma of Hamlet. Therefore, he uh, he doesn't want to compare himself with the Prince Hamlet. He wants to be an attendant of Prince Hamlet. Therefore, he fancies himself as Polonius, the busybody Lord Chamberlain in Shakespeare's play. So that is something ridiculous, that he finds that advise the prince, that attendant who always used to give advice to the prince and becomes a kind of tool for the prince, referential, glad to be of use. But still, that attendant, he is happy to be used by the prince, and that's the same here. Prufrook wants to, that he wants to be just like that attendant who is politic, who is much more meticulous, cautious, and full of high sentence, but a bit obtuse, at times indeed almost ridiculous, but still at times, almost at times, the fool. Like here the speaker says that at some times it is also ridiculous to be just like a fool. So he doesn't want to be treated like a fool, and it is something that makes him ridiculous. Now, moving ahead, I grow old, I grow old. So, as you see here, the refrain has been used by the poet. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I have heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing to me. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back. When the wind blows, the water white and black, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea, by seagulls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. So, here the speaker is seems to be very much obsessed with the notion of his getting aged. So he is extremely obsessed with the idea of getting old, getting aged. I grow old, I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Or when he gets older, uh, he'll start rolling up his bottoms of his pants. So at that time he said, should I part my hair in different place, or can I be bold enough to eat a peach? So moreover, here the speaker seems to be much more conscious of his outer look, of his aging. So that is something which he is not able to digest. So he again says, I will wear white flannel pants. What kind of clothing he should have? Then he says, I will wear white flannel pants, walk on the beach. Shall I walk on the beach? Or I have heard the mermaids singing to each other. I don't think those mermaids will sing to me. Then he says that he, while roaming lonely onto the sea beach, he has heard the mermaids singing to each other, but still he doesn't think that these mermaids will sing for him. This line suggests the total disappointment of the speaker here, that he finds that nobody is interested in him, nobody is happy to give him good company, and he is still obsessed with his melancholic mentality, or with his loneliness, that he still feels that he at the end he will be remain isolated, lonely, alone. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back. Then he imagines that he has seen the mermaids riding towards the sea on the waves, the wind wiping up the waves' foam and making the water look like a swirl of black and white. And next he says, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea. He also imagines that he has been waiting in the rooms underneath the sea, next to mermaids wrapped in red and brown seaweed, waiting for human voices, till human voices wake us and we drown. So he is incessantly waiting for human voice to wake him up, and then he imagines that he will drown. So here the speaker realizes that the time is passing, and that he is growing old. However, like other men going through a middle age crisis, the speaker also considers changing his hairstyles and his clothes. All these are something awkward or unacceptable for him. So like aging old man, he also assumes that he has heard the song of sirens or song of mermaids. However, they are not singing to him, they are not addressing to him. So he once again he gets disappointed, and that's why in the whole poem we find that here the theme of anxiety, indecision, inaction, and desire, communication, or isolation all prevail in throughout the poem. And there are so many repetitions where the juxtaposition of between action and inaction, we also find that the speaker is feeling is in a kind of constant inner dilemma or in a conflict, and he is living in a kind of conflict, and he feels himself disheartening moments, so many moments, disheartening moments of misunderstanding from the other side, or for himself as well. So the speaker's exclamation throughout the poem that it is something impossible to say what just he means. So it underscores exactly how interconnected the desire, communication, disappointment are for the speaker. His frustration suggests that romantic fulfillment requires clear communication, something the poem indicates throughout the text. The speaker might not be capable of something, and simultaneously we can say that the whole poem is very much significant from the point of view of literary devices that can help us in bringing the clarity of the ideas. Like here, T.S. Eliot also used so many literary devices such as metaphors, similes, personification, irony, and the whole poem is full of irony, and which make a very beautiful literary piece of the writer. So it also excels in using literary devices to grab the reader's attention specifically, and also show the effectiveness use of these devices that helps readers to understand T.S. Eliot's message. So actually, if we talk about the title of this poem, that is The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So Eliot's love song does not sing in praise of love here. So the title of the poem raises our expectation that in this poem we shall hear how a lover lays bare his heart at the feet of his beloved. But nothing of this sort happens in the poem. The title of the poem is very much ironic. The point of calling this poem a love song lies in the irony that it will never be sung, that Prufrock will never dare to voice what he feels, and that is also suggested from the very beginning through the epigraph of this poem also. So this poem is a kind of investigation of the disturbed consciousness of the typical modern man, who is overeducated, who is powerful, anxious, and emotionally artificial. The speaker of the poem, Prufrock, is addressing a lover with whom he would like to somehow consummate his relationship, but he cannot dare an approach to the woman. He starts hearing the remarks others makes about his weaknesses. He becomes consciousness of his growing age and unkempt clothing. He rarely thinks of himself and cannot enjoy even a peach. He does not have the courage to do anything in his life except thinking and thinking. So that a kind of meditation is going on in his psyche. So at the end of the poem, he hears the mermaids singing for each other, and he surely knows that they won't sing to him. So with this the poem ends, and I hope that you have understood the poem very well. That's all for today. Thank you, students.